Uch, everyone. Peace and blessings.
We're Seba, we see you and hear you, and your screen share is up and your camera. Heads up.
To Uch, everyone. Do a peace and blessings. And welcome to part 21. Today's Sunday, March 22nd, 2026. And we are still continuing our journey of the topic frustration and the spiritual path. We are currently discussing Shem's Bell, and I think later on, Inspired Hannah's as well. Submissions and the focus on the 42 precepts of Ma'at, specifically the precept. I'll show it in a moment. I have not eaten my heart with anguish, dejection, jealousy, self-recrimination, remorse, or envy. Really, just about any kind of strong emotion. Anything that makes us feel like it's like, changed us, or it shifts us in a deep way. Makes us kind of disconnect from everything else because we're so caught in that emotion. Anything along those lines, whether it lasts for a minute, 10 minutes, weeks, days, whatever, however long it lasts for everyone, depending on the particular the particular thought, feeling, emotion, the particular situation and circumstance. These things all add little shifts in our response. And of course, overall, as we start to discover our discernment, or Ampu discernment, and we'll do the chant for Ampu in a little bit, or discovering what's real from unreal, what's truth from untruth, what's right from wrong, and understand it in a sa way. Sa, the word sa, I don't think I've used it lately. It means understanding with like a feeling, like a deep feeling. Like you have a sense of it. Like it's something more than just intellectual. It connects in some way. Maybe it's connecting with little glimpses you've had from your spiritual practice, but it's deeper than just an intellectual understanding. And there's a positive "are you feeling" that is associated with it. So you're building that positive "are you feeling." And so understanding, so sa, another Seba word, right? Sa-ing, not sawing. It's sa-ing, that you're what we call the rusher, right? I've talked about that. Hopefully you know the acronym by now. That you have this like building sense that, and a recognition that there's a universal spiritual reality, that you're not just this individual wave-like personality, but you are me, and I am you, and you are everybody on here, and you're everybody that you like and you don't like. You're all of it. So that goes back to the joke, like, human beings can constantly kick other human beings out of their life, out of their country, out of their, their sphere. And so in that way, like, human beings seem to be more powerful than the divine, more powerful than God. Because God can't do that. The divine can't do that because the divine is everything. So this is one of the transitions that human beings, spiritual aspirants, are trying to make. So this is why you have to rise above likes and dislikes. From a practical perspective, that will be there. Time and space realities will be time and space realities. Dualities, time and space likes, dislikes. Sages are not going to eat plutonium because it's the self. You're not going to eat like nuclear fusion products because it's the self. They'll understand it's the self. But every aspect of the self has its own energy, its own quality, its own purpose, its own function, its own use. And so time and space reality, the mystical illusory reality, is in harmony with the essence of who we are, even with all its diversity of different objects. So the idea is not to like, I'm one with this object so I can, eat it and I can be one with it. The idea is to be one with it in the essence of your soul. And that does have a transformative effect on the personality and how the impersonality embraces the world. Just the way a mother will scold a child, will teach that child he did wrong, a father will do the same, doesn't affect their love for the child. So when we come into spirituality and we find out that we have to like love everyone and have this unconditional love for everyone, I go, oh, I can't love them. I can't love that person. You're telling me I have to love that person? That person that just did something really horrible to me or to my family or historically or ancestrally did this something really horrible and I have to love them? Like what the heck is that? I can't do that. I don't want to do that. So that's a problem if the aspirant doesn't want to do that, can't do that. Does it mean that you're going to go out and love somebody that hates you so much they want to kill you and you know they want to kill you and you don't? Of course not. You're not going to go out and like, hey, we're the same, I love you. You have discernment. That's why you have discernment. The truth of discernment is that in spite of all of this argue density that we're surrounded with within ourselves, within others, all the emotions, the whole range of human emotions, the whole range of human actions that come from those feelings and emotions and thoughts, everything that we see is a part of this divine expression. That's it. That's what it is. I didn't make it up. You got a problem, I'll do like what is it, Dr. Finch? Go talk to the sages. Go talk to the ancient sages if you don't like it and you can't handle it. I'm just spreading the news. So yeah, so that's what it requires. But the issue, the resistance to it is not coming from the fact of you can't do it or it's not doable. And it's not coming from the fact like, you mean you want me to go do that? No, you have discernment. You have practical reality. All of that is a part of this process. So it's not dropping what you know to go do something else. And so I've discovered that also in my own process of like diet. And you might have discovered this in your process of diet. And I know we're going to get back to the starting. When I've learned that my system responds a certain way to a food, even though I might find out a billion good things about that food that makes it the most optimal, wonderful food for our personality to take. And maybe I've learned it somewhat, we say, the hard way, because it's like, oh, maybe it's my system is not responding to this food. Maybe it's responding to whatever. Let me open myself up to this food. And, and then because this food is so good and I'm in this phrase where I'm just opening myself up to the good things, I'm one with it and I eat it. And I have a reaction. And my inner mind says, well, you already discovered you had an issue with this. Like your I guess we say common sense, but your discernment. It's like discern. It doesn't negate practical reality, your own process, your own experiences. Doesn't negate those. But it does put them in a category from a spiritually discerning perspective that you recognize there's a universal spiritual reality. It's all the ocean of spiritual self. Everything that comes up, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, it's all of that. And so just because the mind can't grasp, well, how this, how that, doesn't mean that you're not ever going to be able to grasp it. So this is where faith in the teachings comes forward. What the ancient teachers have said, they said, this is what it is, that you can do it. So then the question is like, oh, then how can I do it? How can I do it? So this is what we are working on as, as when we are incarnate into the world of time and space, whether we are informal about it, we don't know we are in a spiritual journey, for the soul's evolution. For the soul's evolution. Is everything going to happen according to the ego's desire to be comfort and have, a sense of comfort and what it considers a sense of safety and what it considers a sense of security when it's existent, tied to a physical body that will die, that can get injured, that is vulnerable? But that's what it's going to be seeking, because that's the more animal nature within ourselves. If you look at animals, that's what they will find, that little nice warm spot to go sit in. They like that bodily comfort is associated with safety. So it's not wrong that you have a sense of it and you want to feel comfortable and it's associated with safety. That's like deep evolutionary reptilian brain animal stuff. And I don't mean like animal stuff in like a bad way necessarily. It's just that's how the human being is composed, right? The scriptures say that. I don't have the proverb, but two dual fold, we have two different natures. So that's part of our teachings as well too. So we have to have that recognition of the universal spiritual reality and that quality of discernment, that even though that we understand certain practical realities based on our lived experience in this lifetime and past lifetimes, some of those are not exactly the truth of who we are essentially. Some of them relate to our conditioned ego personality. So we have to discern what is psychological threats and fears that are not really life-threatening threats and fears. But the ego extends it from physical danger, life-threatening danger, to psychological danger, psychological threats related to its sense of self, not the mind body, but its sense of this is me, its sense of self. It expands from just preserving the body to preserving the mind and preserving its thoughts, preserving its comfort. And it gets very comfortable with all the are you in it, whether it's true are you or untrue are you. Because it's been working hard, even the untrue are you, even the anma'at are you, the ones that are not consistent with teachings, it's been working hard for that for lifetimes. It's your whatever the are you is, the personality over lifetimes has been working hard to get that are you in there. So if it feels really encrusted, that's a testament to the strength that you have. Just now we have to transform that strength, turn to the divine. And that strength will also manifest there. And part of it is effacing, like what we've discovered in the are you, in our thoughts, actions, deeds, words, in the teachings that are like, oh, well, that's not good. And if we practice those, that will allow us to get that deeper and deeper sense of discernment, that I am the ocean like self, and not be in contradiction with the vast array of expressions of the wave like emanations or manifestations of that divine self. That is me, that is you, that is all there is. So just the way a mother and a father, a parent can have, it said like three types of situations give this sense of being able to have two not opposing, but two different thoughts, and being able to have this rusher as an underlying pervasive aspect of thought. And this is why the aspect of devotion is both easy and difficult. When we are loving an abstract divinity, oh, our love can flow to that divinity. But when it's not so abstract, when it's the person in front of you acting in some way that, yeah, their ego may be going off, but some way that it triggers your ego to go off. And you in no way can recognize the universal spiritual reality that is the essence of both of you. That is the more challenging practice of devotion. And this is why meditation also can be hard, because in meditation, you're trying to get into the oneness. Initially, we'll go through different levels of it, but let's say the oneness, the raw aspect. You're trying to get into a sense of oneness, that everything is one. But how can you get into a sense of one when you've planted all this are you and you keep planting this are you? Not that person, absolutely not that person. No, not this situation, not that person. So it's like you're trying to meditate and get this like recognition of the universal spiritual reality sense going, but then part of your ego personality is going like, except can we ward this off here? Let's have some exceptions, and it wants to uphold that exception, so it doesn't work. So devotion is both easy, loving the divine, because you feel it, like when you meditate and you have that connection. Anytime you have that connection, I mean, it just like is it wonderful. So can it extend to your spouse? Can it extend to your parents? Can it extend to your children? Does it only extend to like a spiritual teacher? Can it extend to your coworkers? Can it extend to your dog? Can it extend to your cat? Can it extend to the little bug, even as you squish it? For the little cockroaches in your house, you try to catch it, sweep it out, you can't, you squish it. Can you still recognize that the essence of it is that universal spiritual reality? So that is what Ampu asks of us, and that's why he's the opener of the ways, because we have all these many ways about our personalities, like this way, that way. And he opens the ways to the pathway, the spiritual ways, to have that discernment come more and more in us, to be able to recognize universal spiritual reality that is like an underlying pervasive. And the three examples, let's do our opening prayer to Ampu, and then let's see if Ampu makes the way for us to have those three examples before we go into today's teaching. An, Am, Ab, Ah. I have not eaten my heart. Let's see if we can change this out. Ucha, I'm back. So I was holding my breath. I was hoping. I got up early this morning and I was working the computer, and it's being so amazing. But there it goes. So if I cut out again, I can't do anything about it at the moment. It's just when I try to share something, that's when it does it. It seems to be doing it. Let's try again. Okay, there we go. Okay, Seba already started. So since this is interactive, who would like to do the opening prayer to our great Lord Ampu to open the ways of awareness of underlying non-duality, even as there is a sensory perception of seeming duality in our practical, mystical, illusory reality.
Oja. I can do that.
I was trying to see if I could make it larger, but let's just go with that.
Can you hear me?
Ujani, can you hear me? Yes. Dua.
Yes. Okay. Hatepti nesu netara. Anpu wepwat neptajase pekeru kakaped. Sineter adi makeru.
Someone else can.
Tabdina sunatera, anpu epwat neta jese, perkeru kakape, sineterari makeru.
Hatepti nesu netara. Anpu wepwat neptajase pekeru kakaped. Sineter adi makeru.
Tabdina sunatera, anpu epwat neta jese, perkeru kakape, sineterari makeru.
Offering is given to the Supreme Divinity and to Anpu and Wepwat, Lord of the Sacred Land. The spoken offering is 1,000 beef, complete maleness, and 1,000 geese, complete femaleness. This causes the divine to make one true of speech. Hatep.
Much Dua. Okay, so now I'm going to try to change one more time. Okay. I won't have access to the chat easily, so if somebody shares, please. I see something was shared there. The proverb, Musbaket, if you shared it, can you read it, or whoever shared it?
Me, I shared, I think this is the one you were speaking about, Seba, about the double nature of the human being. Humankind.
Let's go ahead.
Humankind is the sole animal that is twofold. One part is simple, the human essential, as say the Greeks, but which we call the form of divine similitude. Humankind is also fourfold, that which the Greeks call heilig, which we call cosmic. And that's taken from Sebama's book, Ancient Egyptian Proverbs.
Dua. And I think there's another one. I can't remember, but that serves for the purpose. So today I'm jumping right in. I think I'm jumping right in. So we're talking about the soul's resources. And again, I'm not saying that we don't need support of other co-souls, other expressions of the divine in time and space in a practical way. That's always there. Human beings are interdependent on creation. Where do we get our food from? On the world, on each other, on nature. So that's the foundation that's understood in our process of discernment. So I'm not talking about that, to keep it straight, because the reason I'm saying, making a point about it, because I think this gets misunderstood, and there's a lot of times where we feel we're pushed to be independent, and like for the teachings, we say like, no hand holding with anyone else to take you into the inner shrine. You had, only you are the only one that goes into the inner shrine. No one goes with you. So it makes it feel like, well, I alone have to do this and I alone have to do this journey. Yet you alone have to do your spiritual work. But as far as like, you alone have to survive in the world by yourself, through yourself, and be like, come a survivalist personality, grow your own food, live, you can do that. But that's not necessarily the best way for a spiritual aspirant. Even in Indian Eastern traditions, it's not necessarily recommended. Those aspirants that go into the caves by themselves and go meditate. I can't speak for everyone, but the warning or caution that comes out of it about some of those aspirants is that they don't have challenges to their personality. They don't have the wives or the husbands to bug them, or the children to bug them. They don't have the neighbors that are trying to mow their grass when they're trying to meditate, or yelling and screaming, or playing loud music just when they're getting ready to do the shadow. They don't have those things. So they have a sense that they can go deep into their peace, but it's unchallenged. It can become, if they're not like advanced in a way to really make use of that in a purposeful way for their Shetty, it can become very egoistic. They can get all sorts of like psychic powers and processes from doing the meditation, but it's not transferable. They're not like fit for for human consumption. They're not helpful. They can't teach aspirants because they become very annoyed and frustrated and angry when things are not going their way. So it's not necessarily healthy for human beings to live that way, right? We learn from each other, we grow from each other, positive and negative. So that being said, for the spiritual path, for this does even spill over into one's life. It spills over into one's life in the way that one really anchors all sources of support externally in the ocean like divine self. All sources of support, all personalities are given one support. You're a wave, they're a wave, and they're supporting you. The support is really from the divine. That's your discernment. Again, you're not going to tell the person, well, thank you for, helping me with this little situation. But really, it's not you that did it, it's God that did it. Now, I do actually say that to some people in my family that knows what I'm about. I can say certain things because without them thinking I'm crazy. Because I've shared with them enough, and they know enough about me and how I operate and things like that. Or if I share with them, if I support them in some way and they're thanking me, I can say, it's coming to you from the divine. It's your own blessings. I can say it in the language they'll understand. So there might be some people that we can, if I had children and were bringing them up in my ways, yeah, I would share it with them, explain to them the duality, like, even though it's others, they're always in that moment, connect the gratitude to the divine, which many of us may do already habitually, even as we're outwardly thanking that expression of the divine. My mom has a saying, God doesn't come, but he sends. That's her. And she just lives by that because it proves itself over and over again. I think I've shared like she needs something done, and, the person shows up in some way or something that she needs it done. Um, and, and we've all had this experience in life, right? So yeah, God doesn't come, the goddess doesn't come uh, in some way or shape that we have in our mind of what it may look like, but it comes to us through all the personalities that are in our life. So working out relationships and personalities does not mean that Seba. Does not mean working out relationships and personalities and like Seba's phone. Does not mean that you have to leave them and run away from them so you can practice your seti, because when you're with them, you're not able to be you're not able to be serene, and they're very rowdy people and all of that. It's not about that. Maybe sometimes you do have to leave. Maybe sometimes you don't. I don't know. Depends on your situation. And you're are you, and there are you. So, but our soul has resources and provisions for the aspirant, and it gives us those resources. It gives us spiritual strength. That doesn't come from the personality. The personality experiences it and like feels so happy when it experiences it. The ego personality. It doesn't have abiding joy, reassured, bliss. That doesn't come from the personality. That comes from the soul. Hatep that everybody wants and we talk about and we hatep all day long. That doesn't come from outside of you. It doesn't come from anyone. When we say hatep, we are actually bringing forth that inner peace from our soul awareness to allow it to express through the personality, just the way the fragrance emanates from a flower effortlessly. So whatever peace the personality is experiencing, it is not the resource for it. It doesn't own it. The reason this is important is because when we have these positive feelings flowing through our personality, if we don't know the source of them, then whatever the animal mind does associations. The animal mind loves to make associations. It does that because it's trying to survive and protect itself. Imagine if yesterday the animal mind in an animal state goes to find some food somewhere, and it goes to eat it. And the minute it takes a bite, a big loud thunder in the sky go boom, and it jumps and it runs away. That meat may be there tomorrow, but it's going to like, last time I did that, this big boom came, and I don't know what that boom was, but it sounded like it was going to kill me. I don't know about that meat. It looks really good, but I have this carcass over here that's safe. No boom occurred when I'm going to eat the carcass. I think I'll stick with the carcass today. So it's all protection from the animal nature to survive. And our minds, even though we're not in those things, our mind have different associations. You know, the jungle, we talk about life as a jungle. You know, the roads are a jungle. You know, we constantly feel like there are bears of human bears and lions and sharks and people driving their little shark-like ways and lion-like ways and trying to like, you know, come run into us constantly, like very vulnerable. So our mind transfers this in even to our modern day world that these feelings are there. But if we don't know the source of those positive feelings, then we don't give credit where credit is due. Instead of turning to the Abnetter, the divinity within, we give thinking it's being with this person, or we think that it's going on this vacation, or we think it's attending this program, or we think that it's not doing this or not whatever it is. So we make an association. And then that's where the clinging comes in, the attachment comes in, because then, you know, I have to have these things around me to feel these happy feelings. But it gets confusing because having those things around sometimes one will not feel the happy feelings. So then we blame the other person. The same person that we think makes us happy also makes us miserable. And we blame them. It's like, why don't you do this? You need to do this. If you act in this way, then I'll be happy. But no, it's when we turn away from the abnetter within ourselves in whatever way we do it, through whatever RU is manifesting, and whatever actions are manifesting, whatever thoughts, feelings are manifesting, whenever we make a little turn away from that. So since the divine is everywhere, and there's nowhere the divine is not, it's almost like we are closing ourselves off. We're contracting, right? As opposed to expanding in consciousness, turning towards, we're contracting with ourselves. And it's like, I don't know anything. I'm not seeing you, God. I'm not seeing you. You're not here. Like internally, that like we're doing something like that mentally. We're just like shutting ourselves down. It's like, no, the situation is just, no, there's no God here. There's no imbanetter here in my heart. There's no abnetter. And that's what blocks out our that when we do that, it's like almost as if like the temple of Aset, the mysteries of Aset and Ra, when in the Assyrian resurrection myth, when Aset was seeking someone to help her, seeking support from the community to hide from Set. She had a baby Heru, and one person out of fear. So fear is one of those things that closes that door away from the divine, shuts the door on the abnetter of Aset. When that happens, that means that we're closing off from those good feelings, and that's why we feel bad. But again, human beings having an animal nature, and I think Bastaku, can you read Bastaku? Are you able to read, or Basbeka can read her that the other proverb about the animal nature?
Uja, can you hear me?
Me?
Me, I can read. Twain are the form of food for soul and body, of which all animals consist. Some are nourished with a twofold form, while others with a single. Their soul is nourished by the ever restless motion of the cosmos. Their bodies have their growth from foods drawn up from the water and the earth of the inferior world. Atap.
Dua. So there's yet another one I was thinking of.
Okay.
It's a lot shorter, but this one also is good. It expresses that twofold nature. And so, yeah, so the twofold nature, the mind appreciates happiness, but if you give it a choice between survival and happiness, it will pick survival when it's connected to the animal aspect of the personality. When we are so attuned to our mind body as a sense of who we are. So that's why we have to expand in consciousness a little bit beyond that. Even though that is there's other aspects to our being that is a metaphysical that we cannot see. Even the mind we cannot see, but the body mind combination makes it feel like it's physical and we can see it. And so, these other aspects are where we are resourced from in the mind and body. So the soul's resources and provisions for the aspirant. And this sounds like it's going to be another possibly type of activity, spiritual mystic activity that maybe we will do as we go through this. You can think about it. Creating an upper, like a little backpack. Which has the provisionings. The resources for the spiritual journey for the royal personality aspirant. And what is in there already? What is in there? So you can start thinking of what are the soul's resources that are already there that you already have access to. Okay. And that's what I'm referring to as soul food, right? We use that term That's the true soul food, and that's where you go for soul food. So the whole point of this whole process that I'm trying to engender by juxtaposing eating one's heart out, right? The heart is the ab, and we know within the ab, that aspect of the unconscious mind and the causal body, the RU resides there, but also Sage Menmope and the teachings say that the soul resides there, the abnetter, the soul resides there also. Separate from it, but the soul resides there. And so when we're eating our heart out, in a way, the imagery is like we definitely don't want to eat our abnetter. So we're using that to, what else can I do with my heart? And what we can do is, go to the abnetter that has whatever is lacking, whatever was making us upset, whatever's making us feel sad, whatever's making whatever. Where I'm not talking about suppressing those emotions, but I'm saying that within the abnetter are resources. So more, this is like what we call sublimation. We're not saying like, you know, it's bad to be sad, so don't be sad. Not about that. Observe your sadness, be aware of it. You're going to do your gentle inquiry into, like, just get a little insight in, like, what was the trigger. You don't want to spend your whole life doing what's the trigger, but you have to do it a little bit to get some little understanding of your own personality and what it's responding to and things like that. You have to get a little bit of that. So whatever troubles come, instead of eating the heart, go to the heart, and specifically go to the abnetter. That is separate from all the argument there. Get in your right mind. Your right mind is the mind when the heart and the abnetter are recognized as what the teachings call imbanetter, in the presence of the divine. That's the right mind. So those three things that I talked about, that where you can keep this awareness of the abnetter, and that's why we did that that activity with creating the kara for the abnetter, because I want it to be very practical reality to you, to see it and be reminded daily, this is something real. This is something real. Even though I don't see it, I want you to get in here that this is something real. My kara and my abnetter, something real, and become so real that it becomes the go-to when anything involves the heart. So there's no eating the heart. There's Seba says, Seba Mopi talks about, spending time in the unconscious mind. He's not talking about spending time in the forest of RU, the dense forest of negative RU. You can spend some time in the positive forest, the forest of positive RU, with a little bit more thinned out. That's okay. But really, he's talking about spending time in the abnetter. So that's the whole aspect of the stopgap technique and measure, to be able to stop those thoughts, feelings, actions in the moment, not suppress them, but make a decision, a discernment that I am choosing to act in alignment with my soul's resources. Like if you're running somewhere, if, like, say you're home, your mom or your spouse or whomever made a wonderful meal with everything you love for you, and you're at work and a coworker says, hey, you want to go get a bite to eat at this, burger place or this pizza place or whatever down the street? You might be pulled to go, like, oh yeah, I can go hang out with this, but it should just be a very 20 to 90-second pull, just because the mind will do that. It'll weigh the opposites. It'll go like, oh, but my friend, like, do need to talk to them about, I did want to talk to them about this project and stuff, so we can just relax and talk. In this example, going with a friend is like something egoistic, and going home where the wonderful soul food is moving towards your abnetter, going on positive spiritual movement, positive RU. So if you know you have everything there already and you don't have to spend any money, because if you go with your friend, you don't know, your friend sometimes like makes you pay. So you're going to go there, your go-to place. At some point, you wouldn't even hesitate. You go like, hey, no, I got to go home. And so that could be also even for your meditation time, because a lot of people, they feel like, people ask them to do this, and can you do this? And then they extend, like at work or and activities, and then they give up on their meditation. They don't feel like the meditation, it's not as pressing right now. And I'm not talking somebody asks you to do something that is urgent, and this is something that can wait till the next day. This is something that they can do. This is something that, if you had a child in the hospital, they would not even ask you. They would say, no, don't go. You have your child in the hospital. Like, it's that kind of like situation. But because they know you don't have a child in the hospital, or maybe you don't have to pick up a kid from daycare, and if you don't get there right away, there'll be a problem. Like, you don't have something urgent in time and space, something that you have to deal with, like in a time space, like, so that whatever it is, it's not urgent. Like, no, you got to go. I get it. You got to go. One of those types of things they're asking you to do. And a lot of people will, even aspirants will go along because they think like selfless service, I have to help. And again, if it's something that is a deadline due tomorrow, and they usually help you with yours, and now you have to help them and they need some time, sure, you can stay there. But I'm not talking, again, that kind of urgency. I'm talking about something that if you had left a pot on the stove on at home, and you just remember, oh my goodness, I wonder if my house is still standing, and you don't have anybody to call, they would say, go, no, go. That type of a situation. Your soul is there waiting for you in the kara, even though it's in you here, it's waiting for you to enter that kara. Going like, said we were going to meditate. Said we were going to meditate at this time. Where is that person? I'm waiting. The soul is unaffected, of course, but also we say the soul, when it gets caught with the mind, it gets affected. And so the soul that is working on its spiritual journey, it wants to get like attention too. If Aset and Haru were waiting for you at home in physical embodiment, what would you say to the person who says, hey, can you do this one more thing? If they were physically there, just because they're not physically there waiting, they're waiting in your abnetter, then the response is like, okay, yeah, I can do this one more thing. And then you get home and then you're too tired to sit with the invisible Asar and Aset as yourself as the Heru. So there has to be time spent with the abnetter to be able to become very resource and provision. But even if you're not spending whatever time you're spending there, first you have to kind of like really start to understand that that's the source of the provisions. And if you want to get the best provisions and the best resources, you need to go there earlier. It is where your serenity comes from. It is where your sense of safety comes from. Your sense of safety, your practical, I heard somebody use a good term for it. What was our term? But your physical body, egoistic, survival mechanism. I should have written that term down. That is not your sense of safety. That's survival. Safety is something different. There are people who are dying, but they have a sense of safety. Because everybody dies. They just die. You think sages, because they're dying or they have a disease, they feel unsafe in this world? Of course not. So the sense of safety is something different than the survival. They associate, but they're different. Solitude, source food, happiness, abiding happiness, expansion of heart, how it have, love, merit, joy, purity. These don't come from other people. All people will express them to you, and the extent they express them to you is if that's what you're considering love, that's what you're going to receive, the limited expression. And it's not even coming to you. You are just resonating with it from your own inner sense of what those emotions are. You're recognizing that, oh, that's when I feel happy, that's happiness, so that's love. When I give love, it's this, so I recognize it and I'm taking it. But your RU also has screwed up ways of understanding happiness, love, abiding, the mind. So that's where discernment comes in. I don't know if anyone can see well enough to read any, not the bottom. At the bottom are I'm just showing where it's from. So it's from the Temple of the Soul Initiation Philosophy and the Temple of Osiris at Abydos book by Seba, chapter 23, Initiatic Stop 21, Provisioning of the Soul for the Higher Journey to the Inner Shrine. And I'm just using it as a reference here. So to get more of a deeper understanding, you can go to that chapter, and it's Initiatic Stop 21. So if anyone can read what's in red here, what's in the other side in black here, it would be appreciated.
Puja Seba, I can read for you.
Dua.
Soul is resourced. Apper, you are well provisioned with all that you need, virtues to oppose vices, to be soulfully fulfilled, soulfully, peacefully, soulfully, joyful, soul, fully calm, serene, internally in soul abnata. Note that this may be different from the ego concept, reptilian brain, survival, security, safety, or ego personality, sense of self, wealth, and fame. To the right, the upper is worn like a backpack over the shoulder and on the back. These are provisions for the spiritual journey of the soul, Osiris, Asar, of the royal person.
Dua. I'm going to try to show it again at some point. It might be in here, but I don't know if you recall the image I had made AI with AI of a female personality standing on the rocks, and I used the proverb of standing on the rocks. There's a while the waves dash against, for and I put there necked, which is spiritual strength, and Kent, which is spiritual valor, which is something that the Neteru are always like bestowing on the aspirant, like all the time. It's like, what are you going to give me, Heteru? Necked. What are you going to give me, Ma? Kent. And because it takes a lot of spiritual strength and valor to really be on the mystical journey. Because one is like the transformation one has to make from the ego personality to the soul essence is very, very vast and deep. Do you want to read it, Basaku? Or Basaku, whoever? Yeah, Basaku.
Uja.
Uja.
As a rock on the seashore, stand firm and let not the dashing of the waves disturb you. Raise your head like a tower on a hill, and the arrows of fortune drop at your feet. In the instant of danger, the courage of your heart will sustain you, and the steadiness of your mind beareth you through. Ancient Egyptian proverb. Hatep.
Hatep. So courage is another soul resource in the heart that can sustain you in challenging times that one is going through in one's soul's evolutionary journey in time and space. Can someone else read this? I think this is taken from the text. This is, I think, a different chapter. This is chapter 32, Initiate Except 25, which also, I think, references the upper.
Uja, greetings.
Uja.
So read the whole page?
Starting at Temple of the Soul, I guess, the reference.
Okay. Temple of the Soul. Initiation, philosophy in the Temple of Osiris at
Uja. Apologies. Start at soul as resource. That you have for repetition.
Okay. Soul is resource. Upper. You are well provisioned with soul food, attributes, qualities from which virtues derive, peace, joy, love. Temple of the Soul. Initiation philosophy in the Temple of Osiris at Abydos. Chapter 23, Initiatic Stop number 25B, being seated on the throne of enlightenment. Upper. Soul's provisions for the Asar, initiate's existence, and prosperity on the throne, page 647. Specifically, her right hand is supporting through the upper symbol.
Excuse me. So that right hand there is a set, goddess Aset. That's her hand that we see here in the image here. Go ahead, Dua.
Thus, supporting him through providing provisions for his existence and prosperity on the throne. Thus, Aset, the power of intuitional wisdom and self-knowledge, is the support of the soul, as well as its capacity for self-knowledge, which protects it from the inimical forces of ignorance and delusions from outside or from within.
Dua. Does anyone here from the morning devotional, the Neb Medu Neb Neb Medu Neb Jedu, is familiar enough with that chant to share it and to also say the English of what it means? I know I've been saying that we'll do it at one point in time, but because we just read the last part here, which protects it from the inimical forces of ignorance and delusion from outside or from within us. So that reminded me of that. If you need time to prepare, you're welcome. Go ahead. I hear someone.
Ni.
Maybe somebody can share it in the temple signal group. You don't have to right now when you get a chance.
Mm-hmm. You want to read it right now? Is what you were saying?
Ni.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Shem spell?
Ni.
Okay.
Shem spell. Okay. Okay. Neb Medu, Neb Jedu. How many times you want it? 4 times? Sorry.
Just one time.
Okay. Neb Medu, Neb Jedu. Irasu Tahanet Rudindi. Meaning, all words, all spoken about me, from outside me, that is, others saying things about me, and also from inside me, such as negative, egotistic self talk based on fear, anger, insecurity, frustration, etc. The Netaru, those gods and goddesses, together they stand up for me on my behalf. That's it.
Attack. And I don't have it at hand at the moment. And I don't have it at hand in the moment. The Perdamu chapter that this comes from, but I know it. It's one of the ones that I wanted to have the movie night, so called, and to do a replay of it. So I'll find that and I'll share that, if not this time, next time. If Sibama is listening and can come out here, I think the AC stopped, Sibama. Anyone has any comments about that? That's like a very important, and I think someone shared it in the chat also. Bastomi, I shared it in the chat as well. So that's like a very key chant that an aspirant can learn and use as its anchor to Abnetter, because what this is saying here, sorry, I'm very relaxed, I guess. I'm stretching a little bit. What this is saying here is that this is another soul provisioning. This protection from the inimical forces of ignorance, like we were thinking that, no, because that's just that. We're thinking that it's coming, like it's protecting us from other people's ignorance. It is in a way, in that it's protecting us from like reacting out of our own ignorant are you to their ignorant egoism, so that we don't do that, math, not math equation of, ignorance plus ignorance, egoism plus egoism, and multiplication of egoism. So that is a soul provisioning. That's not just a mental trick. And the reason that I'm anchoring these things in the soul, where they emanate from, is because if they're not anchored there, then the ego personality is going to continue to think that it is the source of these things. Oh, all I have to do is think of courage and I'm going to have courage. I'm going to meditate on courage. But it's not really be aware that the source of courage is the soul. So if it thinks that it's its own, it has some way to construct courage within itself and experience courage within itself, it's going to keep perpetuating itself in that way as its own entity and its own resource for itself. And the personality is going to keep getting caught up in that, not recognizing that, no, it has nothing. It's illusory. We can't even identify what type of an animal set is. It looks like this, it looks like that, because it's illusory in its power. It's not illusory, it's practical reality, relative reality, non-illusory, but it's illusory in its source of, in its essence, source of power, in its identity as being the self, as being the nuke, the I am. So some more supports if you're making a note for what your apper, what you're going to pack in your apper when you create your apper. And I'll share more about that. I'm trying a couple of upper over the next couple of weeks, but you can do it. Yes, actually, you don't have to wait for me. You can do it, and if you do it and you want to share, feel free to share, and it'll give me eye days. It'll give us eye days. So, it can be like you can have it be like an arrow case, like a little basket, and you have like maybe toothpicks. I'm just one idea. You can have toothpicks on there. The toothpicks like maybe are your arrows or your spears, and you can write on there like, courage, self-knowledge, wisdom, abiding joy, all of that you can put there. You can put that chant, the Nebjedu chant in there. And you can bring that out from your resource whenever you need it. Whenever you're dealing with other personalities and you need that sense of protection. Again, like when we go to Egypt, I make a point about this because when you go to Kemet, the guides will go like, oh, this is the serpent, or this is Sekhmet, it's like, to them, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a relic, or it's like, anyway, help me with that word. Like it's not a symbol, but it's like an amulet. It's like a protective amulet. So I may wear this, and yeah, it's given me protection, right? I can think of it as giving me protection. But for the aspirant, you're not thinking of protection in terms of like, I'm never going to die. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to this personality. There's never going to be any challenges for this personality. This personality is never going to, like, I'm going around like ward off egoism. Everybody's going to come up to me and like, oh, Ja, oh, Seba Ja. And that's all I get. Nobody's going to be angry at me. Nobody's going to be frustrated about my personality, something it did, because I'm just going to hold this, like, Nebmedu, Nebjedu, Erosut, Netrudem Diu out. No, it's protecting me from my own mind. In other words, it's like keeping me anchored in the stillness, the ger, the serenity, keeping me anchored in the serenity, the stillness that is my Abnetter, that is my soul. And in that way, I don't become reactive. And I don't forget about Russia. And I don't think this is some alien, crazy, insane being in front of me and like, what the heck are they doing here? And just get out of my face. Even though I may tell them, let's not do this, I'm walking away. I may get out of their face, or I may say like, can you back off? So I may do that in time and space, but in my heart, my discernment factor, it's not an alien. It's just one teacher puts it like short circuit in god or goddess, a naughty Neteru, an ignorant soul, any of those ways we can look at it. And yeah, ignorant souls can be dangerous, just like if you have a child with a gun or a child running around with a knife, running at you with a knife. Yeah, you better get out of your way and protect yourself and do what you got to do. Just because they're ignorant doesn't mean they can't be harmful to your physical body. So yes, so this idea of the protection from, of ignorance and the delusions from outside or within, in one way, it means to be triggered from outside or triggered within ourselves. Of course, all the triggers really come from within, even if they're triggered from outside. So that's first and foremost what we want to be protected from. And the only place we can get that protection is in our Abnetter. So unless it is an emergency, life or death threatening situation, we usually can always take the time, make the time to connect with our Abnetter. Why? Where do we have to go to connect? Oh, this is a question for you. Where do you have to go to connect to our Abnetter? If you're at work, you have to run home to the shrine that you created. Where is your Abnetter? Where do you have to go to run to your Abnetter? That you, I can't do that right now. I can't do that right now. I don't have time to do that. Where is your Abnetter that you never have time to do it, except to set an emergency, life or death, life-threatening situation? You can type in chat. Seba's taking a break. I still have those 3 aspects of it to share. So maybe I'll share about that while I'm waiting for your responses. So if you have like mothers who have had like newborn babies, and fathers too, but especially the mother because it's been with her 9 months and her thing. A parent who's had a newborn child, especially a mother that loves the child. Wherever that mother goes away from that child, especially it's right after in the first like 2 weeks, is there a moment you think, or how many moments that the mother is not thinking of that child? Somebody can come on and answer that one question while the others are typing in the chat the other question that Baspaket kindly put there. Who's a mother? Do we have any mothers on here that had children that when the babies were born, they were like, fully caught up in love? And then, but they had to go to work, or they had to go to the store, or they had to go someplace within that first 2 weeks and leave the child for, I don't know, whatever time frame. They had to go to the yard and put out the laundry or do something. Do we have any mothers that may have had that experience? Not Seba in this lifetime, so I can't share it.
Just say, Bajal, looks like Shem's Bell is typing. Hit that.
You can speak, Shem's Bell. Or unless you're typing for the other question that Best Bucket put there.
I was for the other question, but I could. So what was your question just now about the mothers? Well,
yeah, after you have your child, the child that you're so in love with, so much love, especially in the first 2 weeks, say, or a month or whatever, you had to go somewhere, and leave the child.
okay.
How much time? Like you had to go to the supermarket, or had to go pick up something from someone or something, or drop somebody somewhere, or whatever. You had to leave the child for a bit. How much of that time when you're away from the child, you are disconnected from a sense of that child or feeling like love for that child? Is that the whole time you're gone, you're disconnected? Or is it mostly you're still connected to the sense of that child and your love like flowing to that child?
I guess mostly I'm connected. Like I don't feel disconnected. When he was little, tiny.
Yeah, just especially after they're born.
Um,
Like when you're at work, did you feel, were you able to work and still have your mind think of your child?
me.
You were able to work and still have like a love kind of sense of caring and love flowing to that child?
Me.
So I saw somebody else type something in chat relative to that question. If the person is able to speak, you're welcome to come on and speak.
That's all.
Uja, this is Shim's Roquette. Uja, Sebaja. I just sent in the chat, just still connected, regardless of what is happening, just still having that connection with an infant.
Since you're on, I don't want to put you in the spot so that you never answer one of my questions again, because you get put in the spot, but I think you can handle it. Have you ever, in your youth, did you ever fall in love with someone? Did you ever feel like you were in love with someone? Like, especially, do you remember in early stages, the infatuation stage, being on the phone late night talking to the person? Do you remember that sense?
Mm-hmm.
Again, when you were away from that person or at work, was there like a greater sense of disconnect from that person, or a greater sense of connection and caring, loving feeling for that person, even as you were working and doing other things?
Nee, there was still that connection. And then it kind of reminds me of a song. There's a thin line between love and hate because it could easily go based on an experience to the other realm. But I notice with infants, and there's more of a vulnerability, there's more of a longer connection of love until about adolescence. And then that may change a little bit.
Dua. Those are very correct. We're staying with the connected parts for this for this thought, but that's like there's uh, uh, remind me to come back to our conversation, James Rock. I don't go anywhere. It
Okay.
reminds me like there's a parable about a, a king and his vizier, like his wise counselor, his minister, and one day like the king loved like say eggplants. The king loved eggplants, right? And so one day like they made eggplant dish, and it was so wonderful, and the king like ate and like and well, actually it's say the chef made the eggplant, and the king praised the chef and says, chef, thank you for making eggplant. I love this eggplant so much. Oh my goodness, I can eat so much of it. It's my favorite food. And so then the king indulged afterwards and then got a bellyache. And the chef came back to the king. How are you doing? I never want to see eggplant ever again. I hate it.
Mhm.
Don't make it for me ever again. It just is like so painful, right? So that's the relationship that we have with things when when they're a source. The same thing we love one moment, the same thing we can hate the next moment. Or that. So anyway, that's the eggplant story. But so ni, but with specifically, there is. What I'm trying to show here is that we can, because people go like, how am I going to think of God all day long? How can I do that when I have things to do? And then you want me to be mindful and put my mind in what I'm doing, but how am I thinking? How my mom used to be a secretary, and so she's typing and transcribing and all that stuff, doing shorthand, but her heart is always with her children. So the point I was trying to make is like we do have this capacity, human beings, that we can have our heart in one place centered, and we can still operate in time and space pretty efficiently. And so that's what the teachings are asking us to do. Be centered in that that stillness of the soul. And Seba, of course, dives much more into this in the depths of it. And here I said it, we're doing like, I'm just doing it in a way that, because how can you have your aware witness consciousness? How can you get to that level? And I did not bring my book. Goodness. Okay. I was going to read a part of it there that gives a side A. But how can you get to it if your mind is in turmoil and all these negative are there plaguing it and reacting to it and things like that? So this is all part of in this stage of the myth where the battle is going on, and Haru is, forgetting who he is and having to remember and forgetting and remembering, Sekawan, Sekaman. In that part of it, we are, even in that part, that capacity to remember is there. And especially if it's the essence of who we are. And so we have to really just, we have to, Sem's bell, we have to patient, Zahemtep. We have to really grind and knock that into our thick skulls, as we say. In the mind.
I'm sorry. There was an answer to the question that you had posed, where do you have to go to connect with your Abnetter? And that was from Aspirantero Malkit. And he said, Uja, to go where? Where does the wave go to connect to the ocean? Uja, rhetorical question. LOL. That's it.
Hey. Dua. Hey, what do you mean rhetorical question? Dua. So another question there. And how much time does that take? So, okay, you've answered where do you have to go? So the next question is, and how much time does it going to take for you to do that? That we will say we don't have time to do that. How much time does it take? Let's see what the next one is. Oh, so before I go on, so do a Shemzrakat for those two, for giving that sense, giving us responding with those two examples that give us that sense that we do have this capacity to hold something dearly in our heart and to be able to also be very effective in our Mat Ari. Because actually, where is another question? Where is the Mat Ari supposed to be flowing from? What is the source that the Mat Ari is flowing from? So are these really two different things that we're doing? Are we doing things in time and space and having to hold the soul in our heart? Are those two different things? Two separate things that it's a struggle to do? So I have two questions on the plate right now. Anyone? Where do we have to go in our daily lives? Something is happening in time and space. Something is starting the process. I'm not talking we're in the middle of eating our heart out now, but I'm just saying the process is started. Something is triggering. The spark is small. It's not a big blazing fire. It's spark. It's small. We're recognizing that it's starting to happen. Whatever is happening is that's triggering this. And the idea of the stop comes to us, which means stop going in that direction, like stop turning away from the divine, because that's what we're doing when we get into situations of where our sense of self feels destitute, lost, hopeless, anxious, fearful, agitated. And we're going to anchor ourselves in the Abneter. So how long I'm pushing back on, I don't have time to do this. This report is due. I don't have time to do this. This person is, my boss is standing right here. How am I going to go to my Abnet? Or I don't have time to do that right now. I have to deal with this. And again, we're not talking life or death emergency crisis where your automatic nervous system takes over. Talking like maybe a perceived threat psychologically, but not like a physical threat to life or death. But the person is in your face. They're right here in your face. Do you have a moment to seed yourself in your Abneter? How far do you have to travel? And that was already answered. And how much time is it going to take? Do we have any answers?
Not yet, Sebaja. It looks like others are typing.
So, okay, well, and again, if you need to interrupt me to speak, you're welcome to speak. The third,
Brent Kimber just typed Uja from within.
And how long does that take?
Sebaja, looks like you're in contemplation, waiting. How long does it take to get the answer?
But I'm also, I may get up for just a moment here. And see if I have a copy of the book right here. I remember the word, but
Uja Sebaja, looks like we have a couple of responses.
Please
Matanu Arit wrote, Uja, I have chanted Om loud and strong in a very deep voice. Clears out anything that does not belong there. Shems Howard wrote, it is a matter of state of mind, whether you are in duality or universal. I is now and forever. Aspirin Kimber wrote, in the moment, one is able to turn their awareness.
Tap. Dua. So the word, and Bucket can type it in for me, it's called Unut. UNNUT. And for those who may want to look it up, I'm in volume 1 of the Egyptian Book of the Dead hieroglyph translations using the trilinear method. And I am on page, I think it's mentioned more than one time there. But that's where I found it. Page, what page? 85. At the very first verse 12, the very last word in that verse. And I know it's somewhere else in this, I believe it's somewhere else in this same verse, but it's called Unut, and it's called a moment. And it's talking about how Ra, Amun Ra, makes the journey. This revolving journey. You can think of how the sun makes the journey. But when it's being related to Amun Ra, it's talked about in this moment. It's like occurs in a moment of time. But this is like, because there's no time, right, for Ra, it's like a timeless moment. It says before he, even as Ra leaves, it's like finds himself there already. It's a moment that neutralizes duality, in which duality just gets obliterated. It's a timeless moment. It's a moment of eternity. Trying to see where that sentence begins.
Sebaja Aspirin Tarua Market wrote, Uja, a continuous flow of time always available. Hatep.
Right. So the word I think I wanted specifically, especially, is that there's no time. All you all said, perfectly normal, perfectly good answers, because it really depends on how long it takes us to get into our right mind, which means our heart gets connected to the abnetter, and then we get into our right mind. So however long it takes us in that moment to get to that, that's our moment. But because we are the abnetter and we are already here and we are soul and there's no time. We are eternity. We are the abnetter. So it's just a mind's movement to what already is. So it's just a mind's movement. So there's no time. So we should never feel like I don't have time to go to my abnetter and get into my right mind so I can handle this situation. Whether we take a breath, whatever it is for us, or whether we do the Nebmedu, whether we say Om as an internal chant, whether we close our eyes and just take a deep breath, whether we think of our abnetter, we put our hand on our heart and take a breath, and then the person is like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to say something that scares you or makes you feel bad. Whatever it is. However we connect. For us, it's just that the turning away is what can take long, but the turning to is unut. It's in a timeless moment. It's right now. However long the darkness has been in a room, we come in and we flip the light switch, unut. Like we say, how that darkness has been in that room for like 10 years. Nobody's been in this house and turned that light on. And you're going like, oh my God, is it going to take like 10 years for the light to come on? How long is it going to take for the light to come on and remove this darkness? How long does it take for the darkness to go away? Instantaneously. In an unut, in a timeless moment. So we always have that timeless moment because we are timeless ourselves, eternal. That's another provision in is our eternal nature. Another provision is our timelessness, our timeless moment. So we can always, no situation we should not feel any situation, again, if it's a life or death threatening, or, our mind survival mechanisms are going to take over and do what it's got to do, that's fine. But other than that, we should never feel, whether it's our emergency or somebody else's in front of us emergency, like I'm just, talking about that, not somebody's dying and we're a nurse or a doctor and we're like, I need a timeless moment right now. But sometimes even in those situations, we do. Sometimes at the moment we have to get into our right mind. So we just take a breath and we don't realize that we're connecting to our deeper soul by doing that, or but we are in that timeless moment to go do whatever it is we have to do. So that timeless moment. And so this week, look for ways in which you already embrace that timeless moment. And the other question was about Ma'at Ari. When you're engaged in actions, and for an aspirant, all actions have to be looked upon as Ma'at Ari. How much trouble is it going to be for you to keep those two things in your mind, the Ma'at Ari and the soul? And my question, I'm saying, is that it should be absolutely no trouble. And why am I saying that it should be absolutely no trouble? Can somebody explain to me do you understand what I'm trying to get at? What is the nature of Ma'at Ari? Where does it come from? Where is it provisioned? Where is it resourced? So are you doing two things? Or is it just being aware of your Abneter is already accomplishing, allowing the mat for what your actions to be Mat Ari and not be RU? Mat Ari and or positive RU and not be negative RU. Creating egoism, for effacing egoism. So someone can give me an answer for that. Or think about giving me an answer to that. So the third aspect is like they say a miser and the money. So I don't know if any of us have had enough money to feel miserly about, but we've all seen, most of us have seen Mr. Burns on the Simpsons, that kind of personality, always counting the money and thinking of it, how much you have and how you can get more. And just like, you hear the stock market is like, oh, did I lose money? Did I make money? Like the mind is always flowing there to it. It's like something that is so, the heart of hearts for that person, that the mind is all flowing there. And you don't want to have anything but your heart, your Abneter in your heart that your mind flows to. And whatever else is important to you, that is an emanation from the Abneter. I'm not saying to like displace whatever is important for you and get rid of everything that you care about. I'm saying that see that as coming out, that's secondary, that comes out of the Abneter. Nibasbek at an eternal moment, a timeless moment. An eternal, timeless moment. Fits with her nature as eternity. So any answers so we can conclude?
Seba, I'm not seeing any.
I'm holding out. I'm going to hold out a little longer. I'm just going to keep looking at my my apper and think about the apper activity. Because I can't know that what I'm saying is just like, it fits hitting a place, or if it's not hitting a place, or if it's resonating, if it's not resonating. I forgot my question, Bus Bucket. What was it? The one I
I'm wondering myself. No, I think it was about your Ma'at Ari.
Oh yeah.
Where is the source of that Ma'at Ari coming from?
Yes. Where is Ma'at Ari?
Matanu Ari wrote, Ma'at Ari is in our upper air. Maybe she means our soul and the abnetter.
Okay.
Looks like Shams Howard is typing.
Okay. Well, since no one else is anyone else also willing to put forth an answer? Where the Ma'at Ari source?
It looks like others are typing, Sebaja. They can come on and speak. It makes it easier for Sebaja, and we're getting closer to that ending time. Hitzat.
And I have one more thing related to Shems Bell's question, like that led to a discussion, I think, that I wanted to share from 42 Precepts book, reference Sage Tahota. So name Shemsarit. That's the point I'm trying to make. The Ma'at Ari is already anchored from the soul awareness. So sages don't go around thinking, I'm doing spiritual work. Enlightened sages, I'm doing spiritual work now. I'm doing spiritual work. I'm doing spiritual work. I'm spirit. I'm doing, like, if you're anchored in your abnetter, right, which is what the process, the whole Shetty process that you're all engaged in. Maybe that's why the answer is not coming forward, because he was like, I'm doing my Shetty and I'm anchored in my I'm anchoring myself in my abnetter. So what do you mean, Sebaja? Right. But I just wanted to like consciously realize that when one is doing Ma'at Ari, and really, if one is an aspirant, one is trying to basically have all actions be righteous, whether it's mundane objects of cleaning and cooking, those are righteous. Those are in line with your spiritual process, your personality purification process. So whether you're taking care of your children, you're taking care of your family, you're dropping off somebody to soccer, you're dropping somebody to do something else, to whatever it is you're doing. If you're staying anchored in your soul awareness, then you know it's the soul that's the powerhouse of you. The soul is that your underlying reality, and all power is sourced in the soul, and therefore the soul is actually the doer, the animation of the personality. The personality has no animation without the awareness of the soul, without the consciousness of the soul that the soul provides. And even in its wits and state, it provides the consciousness, the awareness. Okay, well, I think that is that. So let me. And then we'll conclude after this other point.
Uja Sebaja aspirant Hero Market wrote, Uja Ma'at Ari properly done leads to ego effacement. Hitzat.
Okay, aspirant Haramakit. And again, I'm not putting you in the spot because I want you to stop sharing in the future, because I appreciate that you do share. But what is this properly done that Sebaja is specifically getting at now? Because there's a lot of descriptions, but what is this properly done? What do you mean by properly done? How does properly done work in this context that we're discussing at the moment? What is your properly done? What do you got to do is not our properly done? I'm holding the pen this way as I'm writing. And I'm holding my paper in thin air. Oh, my paper is going on. It has no foundation behind it, and I can't write. Is that not Ma'at Ari? Because I'm not doing it properly. I don't have a book underneath it, and I'm not writing that. Is that what makes it Ma'at Ari or not Ma'at Ari? And how I'm doing it? Go ahead.
Uja, yeah, what I was meaning by properly done, okay, I can express it in maybe 3 levels, but I'm gonna try to explain just from one level, properly done from the standpoint of where you are situating yourself. If it is done from the standpoint of your higher self, of your soul.
But wait a second. Okay, but what is the definition of Mat Ari that Seba is giving here today? Almost like the definition of Mat Ari, or the
uh,
the uh, the quality of Mat Ari, or like what is what Ma'ari? What am I saying that Ma'at Ari is, or where it comes from?
Mad Ari comes from the soul. That's what you
Right.
say. That yeah.
Right. Like when one is seated in their soul and engages in action, that's what makes it Ma'at Ari, is what I'm
Mhm.
saying. So if one is in their right mind, the mind that's turned into the soul, the heart, and I'm not getting to the level of like wherever I'm talking about any aspirant in any level of spiritual evolution. So it will have like a different context depending on, if you're novice, you're intermediate, you're advanced, your soul awareness, is going to be deepening in its expansion as one progresses on the path. So that's understood. But for
Mhm.
this level where we are in the scripture, with Heru and Set battling, and Heru doesn't remember who he is, and Set is mixing them up, at that level, uh, I'm saying that Mat Ari constitutes like just so what I was getting at is like the properly done here in this context for this limited kind of process we're talking about. All I'm asking aspirants to be aware of, to do it properly. I like those words you did, properly done, means that you take a moment to your capacity, your level. Yes, there's going to be egoism involved, of course. Unless you're enlightened, there's going to be egoism involved. Uh, and you're actually using this Mat Ari to efface, as James Howard said, to efface the ego. You're using it to efface the egoism in the personality. But it's not going to be able to efface egoism in the personality if the actions are coming from the mind body process as its own sense of self.
Mhm.
That's just going to intensify egoism. So it has to come from where it's sourced. One has to connect oneself to that source in whatever way, shape, or form, a prayer, a chant, a hekau, whatever, connect oneself there and then try to stay connected. Because as I shared, we do have the capacity to do both things, to stay connected and engage in action. Because that action that we call Mat Ari means that it's connected action. That's what Mat Ari means. It's connected action. It's connected to there's a link from the action going all the way back, not just to the body that's doing the action, not just to the mind that's thinking about the action, not even the are you there. It's going to the abnetter in whatever way, shape, or form, and according to a level of understanding of whatever it is, that's what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to keep the connection from the soul awareness, the sense of the soul has all the resources, and therefore it is the promptings of the soul through the consciousness, through the awareness, that is flowing through our personalities and engage in the action. Because if we are fully feeling that we are source, Nuk Asar, as we were engaged in that action, Nuk Haru, Nuk Asar, Nuk Ra, Nuk Nebuchadnezzar, I'm that mystical lineage, Nuk Asat. If I'm fully engaged in that sense, Nuk Asar, as I'm engaged in that action, then that action is going to be from my personality, from my level of connection that I have, like in the old days, or even the computer, if you don't have a good connection, you get a lot of static, and in that static, you may misunderstand what's coming through. So I'm not saying that the action is going to be like perfect Ari, like you're not going to do any wrong, or not going to do something like egoistically, because it's proportional according to what will flow out. So that's understood, but we are growing, so we have to understand, like, we look at one aspirant do Mat Ari and go like, oh my gosh, they're so egoistic. But for them, it's perfect Mat Ari if when they're doing that action to the capacity that they have that sense of soul awareness, they are staying connected and attuned to it in that action. Somebody can be cleaning the toilet bowl. Properly done doesn't mean like the toilet bowl is sparkling. That is like a worldly, egoistic, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, wonderful. But for an aspirant to clean the toilet bowl, the aspirant has to do it with that sense of being connected to that soul awareness, that sense of soul as the powerhouse. And I know aspirant Haru, especially, I mean, not Haru, Howard, Shems Howard, especially likes that image with the royal personality, with the Haru, famous image with Haru as the hawk, the falcon. Haru is set any of the hall falcons behind the head. So that is what is powerhousing that royal personality, that king, is being all the actions coming forth from the king and being empowered through the consciousness of Haru. So that's what I'm sort of defining as Mat Ari. And properly done means not so much what actions one is engaging in, but how one is engaging in the actions with what awareness. And so that's one link I'm saying. So does that connect, aspirant Huramaket? What I was trying to get at?
Dua Sebaja, that's what I was thinking about, like doing the action from the standpoint of the soul. And like I said in my message, and properly done leads to ego effacement. Also, like it puts the ego personality in its proper place, like the
Well, see,
the
even the
mind
ego.
and the
So
body. Yeah,
even here, I'm not even thinking about the ego personality being in its proper place, like, because the ego personality gets, in a way, well, okay, in its proper place. You mean as in service to Ra, in service to
yeah,
Asar?
like
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it.
the mind and the body becomes like an instrument
Okay.
for the
Got
soul.
it. Neat.
Yeah,
Neat.
in service of the soul. Yeah.
Neat. I just yeah, so that's one way to look at it. And so in that way it faces the egoism, and in that way also it and what I guess the point I was trying to make when I interrupted there is just that in this way, like, you don't even have to think of egoism. You're not even thinking of like the ego personalities getting purified. It's doing both things. Both things are occurring at the same time. And
Like the set nanibira, like set becomes
yeah.
like in the service of Ra.
Yes. And what I'm sharing is that in Mat Ari, it's automatic. It's not like Ra is going to say, hey, Seth, can you go power my boat? Can you go take care of my, like, deal do this thing with that. It's said that way, in the myth, but it's not like that. It's just that if one, the aspirant, is identifying with Ra, then the Heru aspect automatically is just a personality without
Mhm,
egoism. And the
mhm,
personality is not, it has nothing, it doesn't stand on its own without the source of consciousness. It's not, it doesn't, it's doesn't, can't do anything.
mhm,
So even though, like, there we show the instrument of Set doing that, that's the purified personality. That's not ego anymore. That's
mhm.
just the purified personality, which is a vehicle and a vessel. So um so I think those were the main points. And I think it's almost 1 o'clock. So
Dua Sebaja.
Dua. I will then save this for our next meeting, the Tahotep. So if you want to read about it, it's in, I told you which book it is in, and it's on page 68. Three kind of disputants, it's called, in the hard copy. Three kinds of disputants. And it's a different take, but the same kind of take that Sage Amenemopet has with the ger, the silence, the serenity. But I wanted to also differentiate ger, serenity, from the tool of silence. They're connected, but the tool of silence can also be used inappropriately in a way that is harmful to one's spiritual evolution as well. So ger does not just mean silent, I won't say anything. That's the point. So let's conclude. Those who need to leave, you are welcome to leave. Dua for staying, Dua for sharing. And Sibaja really values the sharing, Dua for all the readers. And so please, when you come on, if you are able to be on your computers as opposed to phone, that way you can see, because it's very much visual, what I have to share. And I also really appreciate the input, and I hope none of you feel shy to input. You might say something wrong, and if I make you feel that, you're welcome to let me know, because I don't want to do that. That's not my intention. But I really value hearing your perspectives, even though I may challenge it like I did with Huramakit a little bit, but he held up and I was able to hear his, but I just wanted to be sure we were going in the right direction. So I wasn't challenging so much as just pointing in the right direction, for both of us to be on the same page when we're discussing, to drive the point home. So much ado. So we can close. If you need to leave, please, you're welcome to sign off. And other than that, I will continue to close out here. And end with our closing chant. So let's see what I have going on my screen. I have to find it so I can move it to. I think it's you. Nope. And I will play the for the close. I'll close and out chant. Today I'll play the arrangements of these shrine images. So if anyone didn't get to see them all, you can see them all. And I'll play background music for that. Okay, I just have to find. Okay. Okay. If someone wants to do a closing prayer.
Ucha, ni.
Ucha.
Ahe datenu. Ahe datenu. Erdine. Ujatsune. Erdine. Ujatsune. Ahe datenu. Ahe datenu. Erdine. Ujatsune. Erdine. Ujatsune. It's really small. This is a prayer of supplication to the Atum, the divine manifesting as the dynamic power of spirit, as the life-giving sun. O divine self, grant to me, your humble servant and devoted adorer, the spiritual strength, well-being, and health to provide for my earthly needs and for a successful spiritual life.
Do a hatep. And just want to point out there in this prayer that again, here we're recognizing the prayer recognizes the prayer to the Aten. It's instructed by Sage Amenemopet, is recognizing that we're actually asking this divine self, and we know the divine self, Nebuchadnezzar, Ra, Asar, Basat, any of the Neteru that are emanations of the one Nebuchadnezzar. We're asking that divine self to grant us as a servant, him, the word him is also used there as a servant. The sometimes the priestesses were called the hand of the divine. Why? Because when they're engaged in priestly actions, that's God doing that work. That's their soul doing that work. If they're seated in that divine essence, then it flows from there. So we're asking that source, that upper source, for that spiritual strength, for that well-being, for that health, to provide us in our time and space needs. We're not asking the mind. We're actually sending the mind. We're using our minds to go to that source to get into our right minds. So then we can come forward in our right minds and feel that we are sourced in spiritual strength, to feel that we are sourced in well-being, to feel that we are sourced in health, and that our earthly needs for a successful spiritual life are being met. So divine self grant to us and to our household loved ones, to those in our community, those in our world, as humble servants and devoted adorers, spiritual strength, well-being, and health to provide for our earthly needs and for our successful spiritual lives. Attack, peace, and blessings. See if we can do this successfully. Uja did it again. So if it does it again, it doesn't allow me to show it, then we will conclude. It knocks me off. Okay, there we go. Let's see if it's working. So it sort of knocked it off. So I'm not having success with the PowerPoint. I can keep working at it for a few minutes, but it's or any meeting. I'm not sure which it is, or the computer. It keeps disconnecting me. And I know I saved it in the version, the animated version. It's actually, I had an animated version and I saved it in the animated version, and it's not showing me the animated version. I was playing it at the beginning, and now I don't even know if that version exists. So, okay, we'll conclude here. Heads up, everyone. I don't have any further music to offer. Peace and blessings.